Good morning, everybody. As we kind of work our way toward this weekend, I wanted to look back at the severe weather we saw here in the middle and end of this week. So the first map here shows yesterday's severe storm reports. And we watched yesterday as this elongated frontal boundary stretched from Texas all the way into Wisconsin. And along it, we had over 200 reports of severe weather, a lot of which were some pretty large hail. If we just look back the day before, most of the storms that ripped through parts of the Central Plains here, getting into the western and central Corn Belt, also were big hail producers. We did have the day before on the 19th also 21 reports of tornadoes, so it's been a very busy severe weather week. But I got asked a question about how this particular season's stacking up compared to average, because it feels like we've seen a lot of severe weather early this year. I just want to show you where we currently stand on some of the stats. So why don't we start off with tornadoes first. According to the Storm Prediction Center, the reports that have been received, we're at 560 with the average being 384. So we are well above this. And the big day right here, this would have been March 31st, right into there. If we take a look at the hail reports, we're actually tracking right on average for hail reports, although we've had a lot of these reports coming from big events, these two events that are right in through here. And then with respect to wind reports, so these are straight line wind gusts, we are well above average as well, 2,800 versus 1,700, almost 1,800. So it's been a very active start to the season, and we do see a bit of a lull in this coming, but there's some indications in the longer term here that as we start the month of May, it's going to go back over active again. And it's very important for us to talk about where we expect it to be active. So let's get into this. First of all, I often show a website that has live lightning data, and I always get asked, where do you get that? Well, I'll be sure to link this in the YouTube comments so you have it, but it's a site called Blitzertongue. And early this morning, what we're watching here is a lot of lightning down here along the Gulf Coast in Texas and Louisiana. So this is the tail end of the storms, which yesterday looked something like this. So let me take you back and show you these guys. So as this deep low pressure system just continued to open here across the country, producing very heavy snow on the backside, a large shot of colder air coming in behind it, and then the severe convection, the storms that were rolling right in through this area. We watched in the overnight as the sun set here that these storms began to slow down a bit, except for along the southern edge down here. So this is the infrared imagery right up until we get to sunrise this morning. So this low is still moving quite slowly. There's still more snow on the northern side of this, but there's going to be a big change across the Midwest in terms of our temperatures. So total precipitation, this goes through, let's see if we got the 6 a.m. update. Okay, good. Recording right at 6 a.m., so we got the new data. This is just looking back over the last 72 hours at total accumulated precipitation. So take a good look at this, because some of these storms, in addition to the hail, put down several inches of rain. Very, very wet go of it here through parts of the Mid-South up into the Midwest. Now, the temperature change behind it has been quite dramatic. We have some places that have already dropped off more than 30 degrees Fahrenheit after this front has passed, and it's going to set us up for actually several cooler days across much of the eastern half of the United States, while the West, while the West slowly starts this gradual and welcomed warm up. Another thing to talk about, though, is that with the cooler air, we do see that this morning, here we go, latest update, we have freeze warnings out for Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, and then frost advisories getting pretty far south into Missouri here and along the Mississippi Basin. I'm pretty excited. I'm heading up to Dubuque today, and I'm going to be talking to a bunch of young kids just about severe weather on the Mississippi. It's all a part of just a great day here, just discussing with the younger generations what high impact weather looks like. So I'm pretty excited about that. But it'll be cold in the following days with this. Still have the winter weather advisories in a couple counties here in northern Minnesota that have winter storm warnings, and we are going to be watching snow spreading through the spine of the Rocky Mountains here. Since we're talking about snow, I want to give you the latest update I've got. Now, this was through 7 o'clock last night. They're going to update this later on this morning, but this is total snowfall over the last 3 days. So again, we're capturing the snow that came into Montana that's gone along the U.S.-Canada border into parts of southern Saskatchewan and Manitoba. But here, just on the western side of the Red River of the North, we've got some places that did pick up 8 to 10 inches of snow, some places locally higher than that. But we added more to this last night. Also note the late season snowpack adding up here in parts of the Cascades. Kind of important to see this, just determining the water health of the Pacific Northwest going forward. Okay, severe weather threat today. We got a couple places we're going to watch. So we've already kept our eye down here on the Gulf Coast, Louisiana, Mississippi. And then we'll just watch this frontal boundary as it moves through Ohio into Pennsylvania and New York later today. As we then get into the day on Saturday, the 22nd, we will have to watch here from Virginia through North Carolina, South Carolina, right along the coast as well. But the good news is with this system, it is delivering rain to the state of Virginia, or the Commonwealth of Virginia, excuse me, because we need the moisture in this area. Parts of the mid-Atlantic and through here have been quite dry. So let's go have a look at it. Let's pick this up about 9 o'clock this morning. We're watching that shield of rain along the frontal boundary move through here. The storms to the south and the snow on the backside. Notice the snow that's coming through the Rocky Mountains here as well. Keep an eye on this, especially if you're in and around this region, getting down here into Colorado. So throughout the day on Friday, we'll have some storms out ahead of this. Of course, we'll have some storms draped on the southern side. Just a lower threat for severe weather today than we saw yesterday in terms of extent and duration. So then playing through the overnight hours tonight, some still scattered snow squalls and snow showers on the backside. Snow coming right down here into parts of Colorado out of Wyoming. And as we just play this into Saturday morning, getting into Saturday midday, this is when this whole system finally delivers some moisture into parts of Virginia, Maryland, North, South Carolina. But the reminder here is that these storms could be severe rolling through there. So you can see that through Saturday evening, we're going to have to watch out for the stronger storms to come through. Now on the backside of this low, high pressure sinks in, and it is going to be quite cold coming through here. But as the depth of this colder air just starts to funnel down here, we're actually going to set up a frontal boundary right in through this area. That's going to be critical to next week's precipitation. And I'm going to get into talking to you about that because I'm watching the combination of these short waves moving right here through the Gulf of Alaska. And what they're going to do is they get pulled into this broader trough feature that's across the mid part of the country. Because the upper level forecast looks something like this in terms of the troughs and ridges. By next Wednesday, those troughs I just showed you could be setting up in and around the Four Corner states. We've talked a lot this spring about getting troughs here is key to returning Gulf moisture farther and farther to the west. So let's go see what's going on. So we've been watching this now for 4 days. Let's see what the latest models are. GFS European, we have already discussed the current system getting us through Sunday. So we'll take a look at the precip totals in a second, but now we're caught up. What I'm watching here is this next wave coming into the Pacific Northwest this weekend, sliding down through the Rocky Mountains. See it here? And then by the time we get into Monday night into Tuesday morning, there's going to be a low over the Four Corner states, and it has drawn moisture back into parts of the plains that have not seen moisture in a very long time. So if we just look at this, this is really, I'll just rock back and forth. Monday night through Tuesday into Wednesday, we have multiple chances of getting some precipitation into one of the driest places in the country compared to average. We then watch for the rest of the week for the heavier rains to spread through the Tennessee Valley, down into the southeast, as you see here in both models. So this will be getting through the day on Wednesday. And there's a second push. Take a look at the European. I think it's got a better solution here. A second push next Thursday into Friday of more moisture coming through this area. Unfortunately, there is another trough of low pressure that's coming through the Canadian prairie, setting up here in the northern plains, which is going to bring in more moisture, which is going to be problematic for the snow situation there. And I cannot rule out late next week the potential for more snow to hit parts of the northern plains and the upper Midwest, given how cold it's going to be during that time. So let's start stacking some of this up and seeing what the total precip looks like. It's interesting to note that through the next 7 days, because remember that next system that I just mentioned is coming late next week, okay? We have a drier area in through here, although it will be colder. So this is not going to be the setup to do a lot of planting because of how cold it's going to be. But what I'm most interested in right now, because of the depth of the drought, is that right now the WPC, the Weather Prediction Center, see this contour line? That's 1.5 inches. And they're bringing in moisture into that area. You can see the heavy rain south of it. This is being added to today, but we expect the whole of the south to be quite wet going forward. And this pulls into New England. California, drier, warmer. Honestly, great weather coming into the west here. Let's get some multi-model agreement. This is the ECMWF. Let's add it up. Now watch, that's the current system. Here's the next one. Remember, this is Monday night, Tuesday, Wednesday. So we'll just park this out there at a week. And again, look at the color bar. We're over here, better than 1 inch, some places approaching 2 inches with heavier rain farther to the south. And the GFS has a very similar look. That's a lot of good agreement. Ready? European, GFS. Okay, why this is important. Latest drought monitor release yesterday extended the drought into this region, and now we're putting more moisture on top of this. It's not drought busting, but it is moisture hitting one of the driest places in the country. Here we go looking at soil moisture in that area. Now, we are not expecting the 16 to 40-inch soil moisture values to be high here yet. It's not the right time given how cold it's been and what the snowpack has done. But it is here to see it recover. So it's very important that we watch this carefully. We've recovered that soil moisture in this section of the country, but not so much here. So that's why this rain's so critical. But with the colder air, we do have to be talking about snow. So I want to show you something. This is what's already fallen right here. This was up to early this morning, all right? So we're looking for an addition onto this. So here we go, going into Friday, through the rest of the day into the weekend. And then what you're going to notice is starting on Monday, watch the snow add up here in parts of the Rockies. And it gets all the way down to northern New Mexico. So that tells you the extent of the cooler weather. But there is, better chances of getting that moisture back into this area. What I do have to show you is that once we get out there later in the week next week, we are potentially adding some more snow into parts of Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and possibly in the northern plains. So I want to watch for that very carefully. Let's look at probabilities now. Chance of getting at least an inch in the next 10 days. And we have watched all week these probabilities into this area stay somewhere in that 50 to 90% range, which is great. That means the models are in a better agreement about this happening. But remember, there's that drier area farther to the north of it. Here's the probability of seeing less than a half inch of total accumulated precip. The problem here is that it's cold, and therefore I don't expect a whole lot of planting to happen because of the colder conditions that will be in there for most of this time period to finish the month of April. From here, let's go out and look now at what the pattern's going to do as we start May. So this is quite important. We do see troughs off the west coast. Here's the extended kind of warm up for the west, though still going on into early May. But we have broader troughs that still sit over the east, which means we're going to be seeing a cooler finish to the month, in through this area. But whenever you get flow coming out of the northwest and it's spring or fall or winter, that's dry. Summer, we have a whole different discussion about what this can do for thunderstorms, but right now it's drier. And that's why we look out there at the week 2 forecasts and we see drier in through these areas on all of the models. So that's why it's important we turn that discussion over toward temperatures. If I could make a slight adjustment to this, I do think that we've, when you look at this and you see it's kind of in that second shade of color for above, I just want you to know that to be above normal in precip in early May in California it's not a lot of precipitation. We'll watch this carefully once we get closer to that if there is chances for moisture there. Okay, so let's talk temperatures. Let's get the latest update on this. 620, there we go. So we can already see the extent of the colder air coming in behind this. I mean, the temperature swings in Colorado over the last 10 days have been just incredible, let alone what we've seen through the rest of the plains. But this is what we've got. High temperatures today on Friday, quickly dropping into Saturday, going into Sunday, quite cold in the central United States while the west warms up. Now, there's going to be a brief cool down in the Pacific Northwest on Monday. That's when that wave comes through here, okay? But then they're going to warm right back up Tuesday into Wednesday. Look at this heat by midweek next week. This is fantastic. We need these heat units out west. But the center part of the country, we're going to get most of the way through the end of April without seeing any sort of sustained warmth. Now, how are we doing on accumulating GDDs over those next 7 days? So these numbers down here in the 30s and 40s, this is not, sometimes at this point in April and early May, we could be getting 80 to 120 in a week. And we're that, far behind on the heat with this. But it's building here in the west. But all these zeros just tell you how cold it's going to be, where even though it's going to be drier, colder weather. Let's take a look at the frost extent. It's a little bit different version of this. What I'm doing is I'm cumulatively adding up every 6 hours where the frost extent is going to be. So I don't remove anything from the map. So, for example, this is this morning. And as we play into tomorrow, there you go. You see the cooler conditions coming through Saturday into Sunday. Now, the next push, notice this is coming in Monday morning. See it hitting Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. But after that, you don't see a whole lot of areas being added south of this line, which means we will see colder conditions, but no longer these pretty far to the south extensions of the frost. but the temperature pattern looks something like this. Ready? 5-day sliding window. Watch the west warm up, especially as you get out there day 5 through 10. This gets us out to the 1st of May. And then sliding through here the first 5 days of May, we're going to watch to see if that cooler air can finally start to make its exit east. Okay, bigger picture things. Just thought you might find this, I don't know if the word amusing is right. It's certainly not amusing if you're trying to get something done. But if you look across the whole of the northern hemisphere, we are the coldest compared to average of any other place. And the question is this going to move out? So we began a discussion last night, and we're starting to see some evidence that we're going to get some changes here into and past the first 4 or 5 days of May. And it's the flow dipping over the west, but not deep troughs, and gentle ridging here, while this negative NAO pattern begins to move itself out. As the troughs off the East Coast, they start to move out to the open Atlantic. I think that once we get past the first few days of May, we're going to really open this up to more continuous warmth across a big section here of the United States. Some support from that comes from the European model, looking at the position of the MJO. Popping out over here is a better sign, but as we talked about last night, troughs here with southeast ridges also set things up to give us better chances of severe weather. So we need to be watching out for increased threat of severe weather as we get into the month of May, which, by the way, is the busiest month for severe weather if you're in the plains or in the Midwest or in the Mid-South or Southeast. So this is critical. All right. Lastly, South America. We see drier conditions stretching from Argentina into southern Brazil. As we talked about yesterday, not a problem in this area given the rains that they just had. We're still wetter and Mato Grosso on that safrinha crop. Just remember, May precipitation is typically less than half of April. It's the end of the monsoon. What we're saying here is that the monsoon is giving an extra kick to rainfall on the safrinha crop in the north. The Argentinian drought just continues, though, to build. Finally, in today's report, we are going to rehash some of the information from the newest updates from the CPC, so get a chance to read that. I'd appreciate it. Okay, have a great weekend. We'll talk next week. Thanks.